Lawrence Review.
So I just started reading this and wow, chef's kiss. Above the sun, there's no one. Look above the sun, there's no one. So the author is Elizabeth Acevedo, and the name of the book is The Poet X. And wow. So I took the book from the library and I knew that it was a book for teenagers, and I'm not a teen anymore, but I feel like I'm trying really hard to cling to that era of my life. And I know that 18-year-old me would have loved the story. So this is the story of Chumara, and she's a Latino girl. She's living with her mom, her dad, and her brother. She has a twin brother. Xiomara is in between the desires of her mom, the desires from the church, and putting up with schoolwork. And she's always been a nice girl, but you know how when you are a teenage girl, especially when you are a minority and you are growing up, especially when your body is developing, you have to put up with the masculine gaze from men and older men. And she's talking about that. She's talking about the desire she has for one of her classmates that she has a hard time expressing because her mom is really, really deeply religious and she has to go to church every week, sometimes several times a week, and hear the sermon of the father, especially about temptation, and she's questioning all of that. Now, the way the book is written is under poetry form, and I think that's the reason why I love it. Sometimes when I write my own stuff that I still haven't published because of imposter syndrome, I always wonder, oh, if I write this way, how is it going to be received? Are people going to understand? And all of that. But when I read this book, I was just like, this is so brilliant. This is so brilliant. Like, we are inside her thought process. We are following her stream of consciousness. And sometimes it rhymes, and sometimes it's prose, and sometimes it's text messages. Sometimes sometimes it's just dialogue format. Let me just show you visually how does it look like. So each one page is one. So because of you, I lost my page. But I have a good memory. So she's growing up in Harlem within the Latino community. And I think I read somewhere that the author was an English teacher or English literature professor in high school. And she could see that the students weren't really interested by the books on the curriculum. And she asked them why. And they said, because we are not represented. And it's really interesting because having grown up in France, do I have to say more? So basically, for those who didn't understand all my gesture and all this expressiveness here, I spent all my years in middle school and high school and teenage years not reading anything where I was represented in school, in the French curriculum. Even teenage literature back then, it was Aragon, Twilight, Narnia, Harry Potter. And except for Angelica Johnson or whatever her name is, the wizard, the witch in Harry Potter, we were all Hermione, And don't get me wrong, some of the French literature is bomb when it's not racist. But a lot of it is really not Black-centered, especially not Black women-centered. And when I'm telling you, reading this book, I was in my feelings. I felt like I was 18 years old again. I'm not lying. I felt like I was 18 years old again. The author has an eye for detail that is almost cinematographic, I was reading this book feeling like I was watching a movie. And I think that's the best part. I was literally like... Also, I like the fact that she's weaving... Shomara is the main character, and I like the fact that she's weaving her story along the story of her brother and the mom and the dad. And you know how I love this saying that's a saying I made. A child's pain is her parents' nightmare. And basically, it's a double entendre. I tried. You know how reading the book, we see how her mother's frustration is impacting her as a woman. We see how her father's frustration is impacting her as a daughter, and even her brother as a young man trying to navigate sexuality as well. And I feel for her. I think that's the reason why I'm really attached to the main character, because she constantly feels body shame by her mother, sex shame by her mother, and her father doesn't speak to her. He doesn't speak to her at all. Meanwhile, her brother is incredibly smart, and she has to put up with the fact that they sacrifice themselves to send him to a better school, you know, which is a story, especially if you're a minority, we have heard often.
Vocabulary and break.
A book, un livre. A book, un livre. Un livre. Un livre. Un livre. A bookmark. Un marque-page. Un marque-page. Un marque-page. Un marque-page. Un marque-page. The cover. La couverture. La couverture. La couverture. The back of it. La quatrième de couverture. La quatrième de couverture. Un author. Un auteur. Un auteur.
End of the break.
And so this is a book that you can read extremely fast. I mean, in a few hours, maybe like, I don't know. Like, if you're like a fast reader, I think you can finish it in a day, even 6 or 7 hours. I just read it at night for like an hour and a half. And it's been, 2 days now, and I'm in the middle. I think I'll be done by tonight or tomorrow. And I don't know, like, just reading this, I was like, man, remember when you were 18, 16, 17, and you liked a boy, and you had butterflies in your stomach, and, you know, all of that. And it's really cute, you know. Also, forgot to mention why I love this book, the constant reference to rap music. And it's just, that's the thing I missed. Like, even in the books that I'm writing, in the novels, and in the stuff that I'm writing, I'm constantly referring to music, you know. One of the books I'm writing is set 10 years ago, and I'm mentioning Drake and Nicki and Kendrick and those type of artists. Funnily enough, that was 10 years ago. And in this book, she wrote it in 2018. It was published in 2018. She's mentioning Drake and Nicki and Love and Hip Hop and Cardi B, and I'm just like, this is so contemporary. But if you think about 20 years from now, fast forward 20 years from now, those people are just going to be, the rap legends that our parents used to listen to. And it makes me extremely emotional because now they're just established. There's a spoiler here, not much of a spoiler, but at some point there's even an essay she writes about Nicki, and I was literally in my feelings. I was just like, yes. And she described exactly what I was thinking about on Nicki Minaj, and the fact that she was constantly body shamed, and the fact that she had explicit sexual lyrics and those type of stuff. And it's funny because the whole theme of the book is about having agency over your body and owning your sexuality, and, you know, like, and of course, being Latino, being a minority, growing up in a poor neighborhood, and having to go against the establishment, and you know, pushing yourself further. And at some point, mild spoiler here as well, one of her teachers wants her to do something because she detects that she has some sort of talent. And I remember being 18 and the teacher telling me, like, you know, you should join the choir, you're a good singer. And I was just like, no, because I was too ashamed and I was too scared of my powers, you know. So listen to what the author wrote. To Catherine Bolaños and my former students at Buck Lodge Middle School, 2010-2012, and all the little sisters yearning to see themselves, this is for you. This is literally about representation. And I know this is like a major topic this year, last year, and the year before that, but especially 2020, you know, because it matters, because we've been waiting for that, because it's been hard to grow up, especially, as a guy as well, but especially as a woman or as a protected identity or underrepresented minority, to grow up and see yourself, but in a realistic way, you know, not in a caricatural way, not in a tokenistic way, and I think it does matter. So I would recommend that book for everyone. There's a bit of Spanglish language as well, and if you speak Spanish, then it's just a plus. It set the context. The Spanish language set the context for the hardship this family has to go through together, coming from Dominican Republic, emigrating to the US, and I feel like we've seen those stories. We've seen them on video. We've seen them on musical in the Heights. And at some point, she even go to a party there, and I wasn't even like lost or anything because I knew of the musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And the story of immigration is always a really powerful story, and I feel like I will never, never, never get bored of hearing those stories, whether they're real, whether they're fictional, whether they're from, you know, all the generations, or even my story because I'm here, I'm in the UK, you know. Those stories are always really powerful, and the attachment people have to their home country or their island, like they like to say. And we don't often see that. Americana, Behold the Dreamers, Homegoing, and this book, all those stories are powerful stories of immigration. And it's usually from South America or an African country to the US or the UK in America now. Anyway, I would highly recommend that book. There's rarely a book I don't like. I rarely talk about books I don't like because I know how hard it is to write a story. I know how hard it is to put it together and having people read it and review it and tell you that that wasn't it. And it's a blow to your ego. So I wouldn't do that, even except if I'm really petty, and pettiness doesn't pay, baby. So thank you so much for watching. Mwah. Mwah.
No olvides subscribe.